Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is actually pretty good. I mean, it's not amazing by any means, but I'm quite surprised how fun it is considering all the hate this game is getting all over social media. I headed into this game expecting the absolute worst, but after basically doing everything there is to do in the game, I actually quite like it. It also made me realize this game's hate stems from two things. One that's pretty understandable and another that's not as much. But I am a huge DC fan, and I feel like a lot of DC fans agree that we have been pretty much starving for some new DC video games. It's been so bad to the point where I started to play DC Universe Online again. After many delays, the game would finally release in February 2024. In my review, I'm going to try hard not to focus on all of the online hate this game is getting, because most of it is pretty overblown and stupid. I just want to go into this game with a fresh mind and to form my own opinion. So let's get things started. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a third-person live service looter shooter. Now, I'm not very familiar with the looter shooter genre. I think this might be my very first game I've played of the genre, but I still didn't really mind it. It's really different from Rocksteady's previous work with DC, and to me it feels like Rocksteady wanted to try something new. The fact that this is a live service game is where I thought all of the hate was originally coming from, and while the game is rightfully being criticized for that, it basically only accounts for 20% of this game's hate. Something that's actually good about this game, and I feel like most DC fans would actually get a kick out of, is the story. Not only are the cutscenes beautifully animated, well voice acted, and oftentimes pretty funny, but they feel like they are created out of love for these characters. Other than some weird moments that were most likely changed to fit the narrative, the characters feel like they were ripped straight from the comic books. While the story isn't anything amazing, it's enough to keep you invested for the 10-hour-long campaign. To keep things brief, the Justice League has been captured by Brainiac and are now evil. So it's up to the Suicide Squad to not only stop the Justice League, but kill them, because for some reason the effects of Brainiac's mind control cannot be reversed. Just a warning, I will be discussing spoilers. Something I really loved is the amount of story segments shoved into the gameplay. The one I think everyone has seen is when you're doing a mission and then all of a sudden Green Lantern picks you up, which is pretty cool and a great way of shoving some more info about the story in. But there are so many more, like when you're going through the Batman experience. You and your friends walk through this museum dedicated to Batman, and all slowly get taken out one by one. Not only is it a cool way to show you what happened to Batman after Arkham Knight, but the Batman experience has a double meaning. What normally is a museum is now the place where you, the player, get to experience what Batman puts his criminals through. This part is especially fun with friends, watching each other get taken out by Batman and wondering who's going to be next. But I think the standout is definitely the hallucination gas section. Before the boss fight with Batman, he fills his Batcave with Scarecrow's hallucination gas, which gives each character a completely different trip and experience. Every character must navigate the very dark Batcave and experience their character's greatest fears. During Captain Boomerang's trip, it shows his fear of being abandoned, alcohol addiction, and wanting to be a part of something. King Shark shows his issues with his father, not knowing his own purpose, and just wanting friends and family. Deadshot shows him wanting to be a good father, never wanting to confront his issues, and his guilt for the people he murders. Harley show her memories from Arkham and Amusement Mile, and issues with dependency. And during all of this, there are Batman statues everywhere that stare at you every time you look away from them, and can sometimes come to life and attack you. This section is amazing, and is a great way to teach you more about these characters. This is probably the best part in the entire game, just the storytelling is so good. Despite me not really liking the concept of the story, I think just how they executed it and how it ties into the game was honestly pretty good. It made me look past the fact that I had to kill off some of my favorite DC characters, because I was just too invested into the story. The dialogue during the gameplay and cutscenes are great and sometimes had me genuinely laughing, and I'm the type of person that never really finds comedic moments in films and games funny. The dialogue and story is just so charming that it basically carried me through the whole game. Even during moments that most DC fans would be saying that just doesn't make sense, like King Shark being able to put on Green Lantern's ring, or Flash just not instantly killing most of the Suicide Squad, I do find complaints like that to be a bit dumb, because after all, this is a video game, so of course Flash just isn't going to pull your heart out as soon as you bump into him. And the lore of Green Lanterns and how their rings work can change depending on who is writing the story. So while I think criticism like that is silly, I do have some actual complaints about the story. Mostly the ending. So, the game doesn't really have an ending. The main story just sort of stops after you kill one Brainiac, and then you figure out you have to kill 12 more with a new Brainiac being introduced each season. While I'll talk about the way they're handling the DLC later, I do hate how it affects the story and doesn't give it a proper conclusion. After the last level, the story isn't over and it just feels very unsatisfying. They could have figured out some way to continue the story with DLC without giving the main story such a lackluster ending. But ending aside, I really enjoyed the story in this game, and it honestly might be my favorite part about it. Because too bad the main game itself isn't as well polished. Now I do enjoy the gameplay of Suicide Squad. I didn't have any complaints while playing it through the main story. It wasn't really until afterward things just started to get repetitive. For starters, this game takes place in an open world metropolis that is absolutely gorgeous. They perfectly nailed the aesthetic for Metropolis in the Arkham universe. There are lots of collectibles and challenges you can do, even some interiors. My personal favorite being the Daily Planet. There's even day and night cycles and weather effects, which is something Spider-Man 2 doesn't even have somehow. No hate towards Spider-Man 2 at all, by the way. While there isn't a whole lot to do in the open world, it's still pretty great, and it's fun hunting down aliens and killing them in loads of different ways. The missions in this game follow a linear structure. Go to point A and do whatever you're told. It's fine for getting the story across, but it can definitely turn people off, because the start of the game is just so damn long, and it kinda takes forever to get things going. There are a few mission types that you'll be doing. Story missions, support squad missions, and incursion missions. The story missions can be replayed at any time, which is a nice feature, but like I said, follow a basic linear structure. And you'll be playing support squad missions, boss fights, or story-driven segments. Support squad missions are given out by iconic DC characters, like Toyman, Penguin, Lex Luthor, and Poison Ivy. These missions can be things like protect Poison Ivy's plants from aliens while waiting for a meter to fill, collect a certain amount of data files to put in a car for Toyman, or kill an enemy in a certain way, like only windshield harvesting. Most of the missions in this game revolve around you protecting something or killing things, which isn't really a bad thing if the gameplay is actually fun. Incursion missions are missions you don't unlock until after you beat the main story, and they have you traveling to different multiverses and doing an objective in them in a set amount of time, then rushing to leave at the end. While I do like the missions, I just don't really think there's much variety. The gameplay definitely holds these missions together because if the characters didn't feel fun to play as, then I would be a lot more negative about these missions. None of them are all that creative and sometimes can just be frustrating if the game's mechanics aren't working in your favor. The ones where I was only able to kill enemies in a certain way caused me a lot of issues and would have me playing missions in ways that just aren't really fun. It just extended the amount of time I took to complete a mission. Like I said, the main reason these missions are even enjoyable in the first place is because of the characters and combat system. There are 4 different characters to play as, and each of them give you a completely unique experience. Not only that, but they all have their own massive skill tree that gives you multiple playstyles to choose from with each character. And these can be changed at any time. You aren't restricted and forced to restart if you don't like a certain skill you chose for your character. Every character has a completely unique traversal, melee weapon, and weapon preferences. It's honestly hard switching from one character to another because they all feel completely different from each other. During my solo playthroughs, I played as Captain Boomerang. Being a Flash fan, I obviously put him in the Flash costume throughout the whole game. I just wanted a glimpse at what it would be like to get a Flash video game. Anyways, I think he, hands down, plays the best. He could teleport around, use far and close range weapons, and freeze time. He was an absolute blast to play as, and it's so satisfying getting the hang of a character and building them any way you want. Your character feels insanely overpowered once they're at max level, and I find the leveling system and gathering new equipment and materials to be so satisfying. Now, I haven't been able to level up every character to max level just yet, but they all feel great. I do have a personal bias towards Captain Boomerang since he was the first character I played as, and I just love being able to use the powers of the Speed Force. While playing the game, you'll be getting lots and lots of loot. There are guns, melee weapons, grenades, shield mods, traversal mods, neck bomb mods, and lucky charms. Now, while all of the weapon stuff is quite easy to understand, I do feel like all 4 different types of mods is a bit overwhelming. I don't really think there need to be 4 different mods that all do different things, especially because you can just reroll your stats of your weapon and that sometimes does similar things. I don't know, it just feels like it's way too much. Most of the time I'll just read through my highest rated ones and equip a random one and thought nothing of it. On top of that, you can apply special effects to your weapon like freeze or frenzy, but I never really thought much about those either. I'm not really familiar with the loot and shoot genre, but this just feels like way too many little things that I have to constantly keep track of. But honestly, this is barely a complaint because if anything, it just makes your character stronger. I just rarely took it as seriously as everything else the game had to offer. The gameplay feels amazing in this game. Even if the combat takes a while to get used to, it is well worth it and a great progression system. Even after your character reaches max level, there's a whole new skill tree that applies buffs to your whole entire team, and the thought of getting more characters onto line just excites me. Another great thing about this game was the boss fights. Just the build up to them was exciting enough, and when you actually get to them, most of the time, it was great. Each boss fight feels pretty unique from the last, and can be really challenging. The Flashes is obviously the best, one for how much of a spectacle it all is to look at. It was way too much for my PC to handle, to the point where I just started to lose all my audio while playing, but I still really enjoyed it. There are some weak ones like Batman's, but the section before the boss fight was amazing, so it basically makes up for it. The only real bad boss fight was the final one, against the first Brainiac. First off, it's a reskin of the Flash boss fight, just this time it's really annoying to deal with and there are enemies everywhere. This isn't a proper boss fight against Brainiac, genuinely, this is just super lame. It goes on for way too long, and this boss fight just isn't as fun the second time around, because it's more annoying to hit him, and you're constantly having to take breaks to defeat loads of enemies over and over again. It makes me really scared for the future boss fights, because if they're all going to end up like this, that's really disappointing. After the main story is done, there are quite a bit of things to do. You can do contracts, support squad missions, regular challenges, or mastery levels. The contract system is just doing a small objective like killing 5 enemies with a shotgun, then getting a small reward. It's okay, I didn't really follow it too much, but it gives you more things to do. I did enjoy the regular challenges. I liked the races, and it was satisfying mastering a character's traversal to get all 3 stars. And it's cool they don't restrict you to the recommended character, and I almost beat all of them using Captain Boomerang. I also really enjoyed finding Riddler trophies and solving riddles. Mastery levels is being able to up the game's difficulty after you complete an incursion. The higher your mastery level, the faster you level up, and the better rewards become. I think overall, a lot of the content after the game's main story is fine. Like, I'll definitely enjoy playing it after, but once I get to a certain point, I'm just doing the same things over and over again. And the rewards and progression just all sort of slow down and make it not really worth it to keep playing anymore. And for the gameplay side of things, that's really all I have to say about it. I can't speak for how this game will change once the DLC arrives. I know we are getting a battle pass, so maybe that will give players more of an incentive to play. But now it's time to talk about probably the worst part about this game. All of the live service crap. For starters, this game is always online, which I know will change eventually, but that's still pretty crappy. There's really no reason this game has to be always online though. The decision honestly baffles me. This game also has microtransactions. You can purchase in-game currency to buy skins and emotes. The way it's structured is just so gross. You can buy 3 different versions of each skin. The more money you spend, the more alts and customizability you get for the skin. I don't understand why it's not just a one-time fee. Paying $20 is already way too much for one skin. But the fact you won't even get the full skin is completely stupid. Even if you bought the version of the game that gives you the classic alt, you don't even get every alt available for it. You have to go buy the rest of the alts just to do something as basic as taking Harley's hat off. If you're just playing the base game, you only get access to 1 new skin, which is a damn shame. Spider-Man 2 gives you tons of skins, all for free in the base game. Same with Arkham Knight. It's honestly insane how much they're expecting people to pay for skins. And so far, a couple of weeks after launch, there's only 4 skins in the whole entire game. So is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League as awful as social media is making it out to be? No. I guarantee you most people that are hating on this game because it's somehow disrespectful to Batman have most likely not played this game. Honestly, the game is actually pretty good. And it annoys me so much that people are using Kevin Conroy's death to victimize him, as if making the game was a living hell. And this isn't even his last performance in a video game. He's going to be in a new DC Online update according to one of the developers. All of this was just so overblown and pointless, and if you were to actually play the game, you would find out that there's a proper tribute to Kevin at the end. Anyways, this game isn't amazing by any means, it's pretty good to be honest. Don't let people's opinions on the internet, or anything for that matter, determine how much you will enjoy a video game. I'm excited for the future of this game. And if you've watched this video all the way to the end, thank you so much. And stay tuned, because I do have 100% completing every Arkham video in the works. So if you're interested, consider subscribing. Again, thank you so much for watching.